This young feller is Robert Bobby Daniels. First of all, he's my brother-in-law, okay? He's married to my littlest sister, Natalie. And he is also the president and CEO of Misty Ventures Limited Partnership, which is the economic development entity for Mistawasis Nehiyawak. When Robert started with Misty Ventures in 2015, there was no economic development activity. And today there are 7 active companies that are owned by the entity. Bobby's passion is to create the best economic development department for his nation, Mistawasis, and pass the torch to a younger, motivated, business-minded individual that can continue the great work in progress. Bobby and his wife, Natalie Sutherland, my sister, have 3 children and 2 grandsons. With several years of sobriety, golf has taken over Robert's extracurricular activity. With full support and understanding from his wife during April to October. I don't know if it's full support, Robert. But over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Tricia. Thanks for the opening comments, and really appreciate the introductions. And kind of like Tracy and Tricia, I too have kind of got attached to this group. I was kind of started from the beginning, and first couple of meetings, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna have time to commit to this. And I thought, oh, well, here I am, I think almost 3 years later, still hanging in there. And I think it's important, defining what reconciliation is and what it means to you. And I guess the topic we're going to discuss today, I don't want to go too much time. We have one of our speakers that will have to leave a little bit early, but I want to make sure he gets in his portion. But the 3 guest speakers you have today, I'll introduce them one by one as I have them come up and just kind of give us a little overview of what they do and in their community and in their industry that they're involved in. And we kind of have a broad perspective from land development, economic development, startups to renewable energy to large scale projects to just doing good work for their communities in their region. And first of all, I'd like to start off, and not by any order, but just my friend Albert has to leave a little bit early, so we're going to get him on. Albert DeRocher is from Flying Dust First Nation, as spoken. I've had the opportunity to sit in a couple of meetings with Albert, and he's an awesome guy and a great guy to sit down with. I think the best time was in Winnipeg when we were at a LABRC conference, and man, I had a good time. I had sore cheeks when I went to bed, and I was just like, oh man, this guy made me laugh for an hour and a half. But again, he's not only a good energy, but he's a very influential and passionate for his community. And I think that, his tribal council, his community are very lucky to have him. Again, I didn't get a written up bio. That's kind of my fault. I thought I knew enough about them to introduce them, but Albert has extensive experience in economic development from the early years. He's been involved in it within his own community, but he's branched off to other areas, and he's also sitting on the board, I believe, of Financial First Nations Power Authority, I think is one of his boards, and just presently involved in another renewable energy project and opportunity with this community. And I'll let him kind of speak to that and maybe part of his presentation. I don't know if I took some of your highlight, Albert, but at the end of the day, he does have to leave by 1:45. So any questions for him, if you can just ask those quickly before he leaves at 1:45, and then we'll follow with Barrett and Neil, and I'll do introductions with them. Thank you. There we go.
Hi, thank you. Man, it's just like letting a racehorse at the track there being left at the gate. Anyways, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this conference and this panel. I got the little gift yesterday, very much appreciated. Again, I'd like to thank the elder this morning for saying an opening prayer for you folks. And again, we've got a lot of snow up here in Meadow Lake right now, so I don't know if there's a little bit happening down south, but yeah, you guys are going to get your winter too. So I guess, Robert, thank you again for the introduction. My name's Albert DeRocher, and I've been working in the economic development sector for 30 years, a little over 30 years. I started with the Meadow Lake Tribal Council when I was in high school in 1981. and worked with them in the Flying Dust First Nation throughout my high school and post-secondary, and then been working ever since with the two groups. I guess to start with Flying Dust, we have had a holding corporation since 1988, which I was a part of, and I'm still here. They can't get rid of me. But we got some good young people coming up actually that are in the Edwards School of Business. I'm trying to get them to come and participate a little more in kind of the stuff we do right now. So we have 18 different companies. We have a power company, oil and gas company, a market garden, organic market garden company. We have a gravel company, very successful gravel company. Again, we got numerous companies, and so we've watched our ability and our opportunities grow as we grow with those businesses. And so again, very proud of the fact that, you know, we've been able to employ over 240 people in our small community. You know, and in the back, you can see my commercial development. We own property within the city of Meadow Lake, and we're actually presently working right now. It's a $22 million project. And so, you know, we're working on that with engineering firms and some environmental firms. We just did a $20 million remediation cleanup. We also own an environmental company. We do the accelerated site closure program. We have about 24 oil and gas wells in Southeast Saskatchewan. And this year we had to clean up about 6 of them. So we remediated and cleaned up those abandoned and inactive wells with our partner Crescent Point, and then with our other partner, West Earth Environmental Services. I guess to go about a little bit around some of the stuff that I do as well with the Meadow Lake Tribal Council. So right now we're completing a $82 million biomass facility, which will produce 6.8 megawatts of power to SaskPower, which we've had a PPA with them. That was a 11-year project. Next week on the 17th, we're signing our PPA for our 20 megawatt flare gas project. That's a $64 million project, and that's 9 years in the making. So these power projects don't happen overnight, obviously, and especially when you're dealing with an entity such as SaskPower. You know, there's a lot of I guess a lot of breaking through the glass ceiling kind of thing to work with the Crown Corps. Again, I'm involved with FNPA, which is the First Nations Power Authority, and we have opportunities that we work with in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and we are now working on SMRs in Ontario and New Brunswick. So we're working with 25 First Nations in New Brunswick. And then we're also working with about 70 First Nations in Ontario. So I'm involved in a lot of those things. On the MLTC side, we own 14 businesses, 8 of which are partnerships, 6 which are wholly owned. We own North Sask Forest Products, which employs about 220 people. We also own Northwind Forest Products in Glassland, which employs about 80 people. Again, the forestry industry is where our main focus is. We employ close to, directly and indirectly, close to 750 people. And of that, about 80% are Indigenous. So that's contractors, loaders, truckers, and then folks working right in the mills themselves. And then we're also partnering with another group called My Energy that will be coming to an announcement here very soon, of which my good friend Robert is involved with us. At the end of the day, that's just another great opportunity for First Nations to be involved in that sector. I wanted to talk a little bit, though, not so much about who we are, but more about the reconciliation aspect of this. And so there's a group out of BC called the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, who've developed I guess, a path forward for First Nations and industry to work together. I think it's a very excellent template because it highlights the ESG aspect of working with First Nations. So again, when we talk about this, just to give the education on the ESG, number one is when companies are coming or industries wanting to deal with First Nations, one of the first things they need to look at is if they have a project, they need to look at the capacity of that Indigenous community for investment, having that capital investment dollar. That's number one. It's one thing to say, well, we're going to put some industry, we're going to put industry on your property or whatever, and you get a little bit of, leasing or whatever. But more importantly, most First Nations now want to be part of the company, part of the project, whether that's through ownership or whether that's through partnership or whether that's through, getting the opportunities on the contracting side, on the procurement side, through the EPCs. Again, the need for projects to fit with the goals and values of those First Nations. Very, very important, and I guess that's where the relationship building comes in. So again, one of the things I always say is, respect and trust are the two values we have the highest in terms of when we meet with industry. Because I always say, if you can't respect us, then how can we trust you? Or if we can't respect you, how can you trust us? So that has to work both ways. Very, very important. It's, again, just like a marriage. If you can't trust your partner, I mean, there's no sense trying to get married, right? I mean, it's just that simple. Again, the need, and I brought this up again, the need for support to develop capacity. So a lot of times these First Nations have really great ideas. They have great vision about what they want their community to do and where they want their community to head. But again, not having sometimes a capacity, not just financial capacity, human resource capacity, governance capacity. Those are the main things when you talk about any board structure. What are the three things? What are the four pillars you talk about, right? It's governance, financial, HR, and then your corporate responsibility. So again, those are very, very important to identify when you're doing the strategic planning. Again, having participation from industry and First Nations at the table, discussing public and corporate policy. So again, having Indigenous participants in the board, or at least in the policy development of the corporation, to include that. I know a lot of companies now have Indigenous engagement officers, or they have Indigenous engagement policies. And again, sometimes those are written without the assistance of Indigenous folks, which is unfortunate, because I think in order to really understand any type of topic, whether it's talking about Indigenous people or whatever, even how to make a phone, you're going to need somebody that has that experience or that background, right? To understanding those values, understanding those traditions, and the cultural aspect of it. So again, having investment capital as well early on in projects. So when companies come, a lot of them are coming and saying, well, if you got $5 million, we'll include you in this project. Well, most First Nations don't have access to that. A lot of them are running on program and services dollars. And if anyone does their homework on Indigenous Services Canada, no disrespect here, but it's the fact, is that most First Nations are underfunded, like badly underfunded. And so I'll give you an example. Flying Dust here. We have an agreement with the City of Meadow Lake, or the public school division here. And we get $7,500 a year per student. But because our students are, even though none of our students speak a second language here yet, because a lot of them have lost it, they're still considered like a second language student. So they charge us $12,500 per student. That $5,000 doesn't come from the government. It comes from our own pocket as a First Nation. So every year we pay the school division about $1.2 million a year out of our own source revenue. That's the money we generate from our economic endeavors. So we're actually working to pay for our education, believe it or not, and amongst other things. Just to give you an example, we help out our youth with cultural camps with the money we make. We help out our elders. We pay a lot of their utilities. We have an elders home that we built with our own source revenue that we, contribute and assist with. And then we also have a community development corp. So with that community development corp, we assist band members that need medical trips, require assistance with, they're moving into a city, and other things. I mean, year over year, we probably make, I don't know, between $2 to $2.5 million in revenue but that's what we generate in terms of profit. But then we have to probably spend $2 million just on programs and services because we're so underfunded. So again, these are the issues that we have to do so, or deal with, sorry. So I wanted to talk a little bit too about ESG, and of course the E in ESG is about the environment, and there's a real large focus on that right now. So again, that's fair. That's kind of what in our value wheelhouse, so to speak. So that's why I'm really involved in renewable energy, because again, as long as the treaty says, as long as the sun shines, the grass grows and the river flows. Well, we use sun for solar, we use the trees for biomass, we use the water for hydro, and we're using the wind for wind power. So again, really meeting the values of our folks as Indigenous people. And then the G in ESG is significant, because one of the things that I've always said, and when I talk to any partners we have, is we need to have Indigenous board members on those businesses, specifically women. Having more women board members in the boardroom with these companies. So when we set up a partnership, we've got various partnerships. I make sure that when we make the negotiations, that's part of the plan and part of the focus going forward. Very important to us. In fact, when we did the biomass project, we ensured that we kept track of how many Indigenous folks were working, and specifically how many women were working, Indigenous women and non-Indigenous. So again, very, very important to track those stats. And so in terms of economic development in Saskatchewan, I think the sky's the limit right now. There's many large projects. I'm involved with the One Sky Forest project, which is a partnership between 13 First Nations right now, and a company out of BC called Peak Renewables. And it's a $300 million OSB mill that we're planning in Prince Albert. I'm also involved with biodiesel facility that we're looking at on Flying Dust property near Stoughton. It's called Creelman. That's a $200 million biodiesel facility, and it's net zero. So the technology that's being used will meet the clean fuel standard that the government of Canada and I guess ē-nīso has. So again, these are things that create a lot of jobs, create a lot of opportunity for First Nations, and are things that are forward-looking and not so much, yes, there's the mom and pop shops and,
Sorry,
stuff
Albert,
like that.
Just 1 minute left there, my friend. I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
So,
So again, thank you. 5 things I want to say. Changing the investment landscape, very important. Understanding and realizing Indigenous priorities within their communities. Then the gaps in Indigenous investment. And then indigenizing ESG. So I tell everybody it's IESG, right? Because you need to have Indigenous folks involved in that. And then raising the bar. So let's raise that bar in Saskatchewan. We're doing as much as we can, up here in Northwest Saskatchewan to get more Indigenous participation in the economy. So again, thank you very much for having me here. And, it's too bad I had to leave. I could probably talk for another hour and a half for you guys and give you all the lowdown on everything else we're doing. But hey, at the end of the day, the other groups are doing well too. And, we're always open for partnerships, not only with non-First Nation, but with First Nation entities as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Albert. I really appreciate your words. And I knew I was going to have trouble to cut you off. I said, I'm going to have to give him a signal. I said, I know he can hang on to that mic for a while. So no, I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can still get a couple questions in for you as they come up. But a few of the folks are going to be, we got a couple more speakers to go through in the panel. Please stick around, Albert, if you can, but I understand if you have to leave, but if you're okay with it, I'll share your contact information for anyone that has any questions for you in your region and what's going on. And if you're okay with that, I'll share your information. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Again, big thanks to Albert DeRocher from Flying Dust First Nation and Meadow Lake Tribal Council. Great words. And I don't want to take too much time. I know we've got about a half hour left. So I want to introduce now Barrett Greyeyes. He is from the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. I got to take my glasses off. I'm sorry, I forgot my bifocals, but a proud member of Muskeg Lake Cree Nation, started his career as a journeyman plumber, gas fitter, and worked across Saskatchewan and Alberta. Barrett was a former counselor for his First Nation, entrepreneur and business owner for over 10 years. A graduate from University of Saskatchewan, ē-nīso ski certificate program. I practiced that all night too, but I rolled it off the tongue. Gave him a greater understanding of Indigenous land development, which led to business development position with Altus Group, focusing on surveying, GIS, and mapping, as well as property taxation assessment. He is currently the Chief Operating Officer for Muskeg Lake Cree Nation Investment Management Corporation, where he is part of managing a group of companies that include service, retail, media, communication, land development, and property management. And just to give a perspective, it's that piece of property at the end. I know it's going to probably be in your presentation, Barrett, but in the Sutherland area, they call it Packham. Everyone calls it Muskeg, or Packham is the short terminology, but I'll leave that to Barrett. And no further ado, I'll let Barrett go. I'll kind of give you the same thing, 2-minute warning if you need it, Barrett. And otherwise, Neil Sasakamoose will be speaking next. And I wanted to bring Barrett in to talk about basically land development and economic development impacts. And I'll leave it to him to discuss how that works for Muskeg Lake. Thank you. Go ahead, Barrett.
You guys got me?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks again for asking me here. And pimohtēyahk is how you say it. It means taking care of the land. It used to be Aboriginal Land Management Program at the U of S through the Department of Agriculture. So, but it has been changed, and we'll let you slide on that one, Bobby, but next time. And yeah, so Bob asked me to kind of come and speak here, and I did some reading to what you guys are doing and what the group is doing, and it's interesting because it is not only is it a call to action, but it's something that Muskeg's been a part of for a lot of years. And in the beginning, I know Bobby and I talked about, he wanted a little bit of a history of how this kind of came to be. And I've been lucky enough over the years to be, to know the architects of the land and how it came to be. And one of the interesting things about it is that 30 years ago, when the idea came, it was a lot of people sticking their neck out. And there was an understanding in that first group that started it that it's got to be a secret. It can't go out. Nobody can know that what we're doing, because if they do, public opinion will chew us up. So if this gets out from either the nation or the government or the municipality, the deal's done. So when this started, reconciliation wasn't a thing. This was a career ender for certain politicians and people in those roles. And now we've done a 180-degree turn where now people are proud and they wanna, there's groups and organizations that are willing to talk. And that's, to me, that's reconciliation. We've come in 30 years, we've come to a point where now people are open to that. So that's kind of applaud you guys on what you're doing. As Bobby said, we're located here at Packham Avenue, and Asmagansi is a ski is the land, and what it means is veterans land. So Muskeg Lake has a high percentage of our band members actually went to fight in the conflicts and currently serve. So when the land was purchased, the community got together, and when we did name it, it was named after our veterans. And one of the roads actually is changed to Joseph Okamasis Drive, and he was a soldier that didn't make it back. So it's just kind of because Remembrance Day is coming up, and we did have Aboriginal Veterans Day. Just thought I'd touch on that, and that's what it means to us here at Muskeg Lake. So couple of things we have going on is obviously a focus on urban development. We in the last few years, we've completed $27 million in construction, and then as the tenants fill out that space, we now hold, I think we're north of 70 million in asset value. And something interesting for the municipalities and stuff is that when a First Nation purchases land, and Albert alluded to this too, is that financing is a difficult area for banks to wrap their head around, or lending institutions, because essentially Crown land doesn't have a value. But if we were to include our land value here in Muskeg Lake at the urban reserve, we're talking it's a $28 million raw land purchase. But because it's reserve land, a lot of lending institutions don't look at that land as fee simple land, right? So that's more to Albert's point. He brought up a really good point where people need to think outside the box, I guess, when you're looking at land and development and what it can be. So we've been successful with some of our institutions, and we're pushing the boundaries of what that is, I guess. Currently here on the property, I think we're over 600,000 employees here. And we've actually seen a demographic shift when we did open our doors to just being a developer. At one point, this was 100% Indigenous employment here on the urban reserve. But what we're seeing is tenants come in that are non-Indigenous, they're just seeing it as a good place to work, a good location, good facilities. So we're seeing a shift where actually now it's about 80%. So of the 625 odd employees here, there is a large portion of them that are non-Indigenous, and it's kind of that's working to reconciliation as well, is that some of our tenants are embracing it. Lakeside Medical is a prime example of an organization that came in and they asked us, well, what do we do? How do we become Indigenous? We said, well, have some Indigenous doctors, right? There was an actual operating clinic here on our property, and Lakeside through us, and they asked, can you guys create that synergy so we can actually purchase the clinic? And we were like, yeah, it's an awesome idea. So actually now Lakeside actually has 8 practicing doctors on the site that are Indigenous. So if you go on their website, I'd like everybody to do that. We're pretty proud of them as we go down the road of reconciliation. They really embraced what that is. So some of the other businesses are here, 9 economic development corps. We have 5 medical services here, 3 educational facilities and groups, 5 financial related entities. There's 10 entrepreneur groups, just business people. We have 2 insurance companies here on the property, and 5 public service companies, as well as a federal agency here on the property. So quite a diverse range of tenants and people here, I don't know, enjoying the fruits of the labor, I guess. A big one that I guess municipalities and the surrounding towns want to hear, I guess, is the numbers of, we're giving back to the local economy to the tune of $60 million in just the activity that goes on here annually. That's not, we're not retaining that. That just goes out into the city, into the province. So I know if you talk to the mayor and council at Saskatoon, that it's kind of a feather in their cap that's available for them. I know Albert brought up talking about your relationship and how municipalities, cities, towns, and groups are going to work together. And I think one of the keys is an open dialogue. Like, don't only talk and don't only interact with us when there's a project. It should be an open dialogue constantly. Like, what's going on with you guys? Even if you're not working on a project, the closer towns should always be just communicating, so that if something does open up, people know who each other are. They know your contact information. They understand what you do at your role, and that it helps the project speed up quite a bit. So I don't know if there's anything else you want me to touch on, Bobby, but that was pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah, no, that was great. I really appreciate your words, Barrett. I think you've touched it. There's gonna be a couple of questions after, I think, and then we'll just let Neil do his presentation, and we'll open up for questions.
I was trying to be fast. I have a ton of notes here, like Albert.
No, that's perfect. No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I think Neil will have lots to say, and then we save some time left for questions. I think there's been a couple of questions in the chat, and we'll see what we can do to answer those questions. Again, thank you so much, Barrett. I really appreciate your words, and congratulations on Muskeg Lake and your development in the Sutherland area. And I think you've done a great job. So it looks awesome when you get out there. It's really good quality buildings and great to see. So with that, I'd like to introduce Neil Sasakamus, who is the tribal chief of Battleford Agency Tribal Council. He is long-standing. I think he's been there about 40 years, maybe. No, sorry, Neil. I think it's about, he's been there a while, but Neil has an extensive amount of political experience, but also business. And I think that's the difference that his tribal council brings. He's been involved in employment and training, to medical, to health, to, I don't want to take too much from his presentation, but he also does community work. You know, he has the Freddie Sasakamus hockey tournament that's really kind of brought the community together, and he's done a lot of good things. And with that, Neil comes from Atakakoop First Nation, which is just north of Misty in God's country. And I think that, you know, he's been very instrumental in his tribal council, and I think that they're very fortunate that they have him. So with that, further ado, I'd like to introduce Neil Sasakamus.
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me, Bobby? Do you want me to tell stories about you, or is it because the Chief's online?
No stories, okay?
I'll leave you alone. And good to see Naps and Barrett. Nice to meet you, and good to see you guys. And no, my name is Neil, and good to see the Chief Sutherland. It's always a great honor to see you. And we'll go from there. Nap said I got 2 minutes left already, so I'm not like him. I won't talk forever. But anyway, you know, I don't know really where to start. It's a great honor to be part of something. I stay pretty close to what I do, and just trying to, you know, when you speak, you try format your presentation, or your how you're going to speak to people and the audience. And but I just want to say I work for BATC. They're called Battleford Agency Tribal Chiefs. I'm a director there. I do a lot of different roles for them. I'm also their acting CEO I run the operations of the tribal council. We don't have a tribal chief. We just something the bands haven't evolved into. We're more of a service-based business, I think, and I do a number of roles. I'm their CEO for their BATC investments arm. We have a pretty active investment arm that we get into. I also manage our president of their development corporation. It's called Community Development Corporation. I'm the president of their Nikik Manufacturing. It's a product you've probably seen on Sobeys. We come out of the pandemic with, doing really well. So I'm president of their construction arms. We've got about 4 or 5 construction arms. I'm president of those. So I do a lot of the range I have is pretty wide. The Chiefs have always given me a lot of space to grow. So that's the first thing, I think. So maybe from a starting point, I think the audience is it's good that you're in a region and people are gathering. So I want to talk to you about our region. And I probably am hoping there's a couple people from the region there. I'm not from the region, but I've worked now in the region since 2007. I left the casino industry to go help start up a brand new tribal council out of bands and relationships breaking down. And it happens. It used to happen quite a bit in the past. It doesn't happen as much anymore. But you know, as First Nations, as you grow, you go through lots of growing pains, and you know, capacity, people, human resource people, you know, those kind of capacities. You're always looking for really good people. You wait for people to come out of university. You buy people out of university. So you're always looking. You're looking to always build your future, and people are your future. You know, relationships will always come and go. Companies will come and go, but it's people that make things work on the inside. Our region is, you know, our region's learning how to interact with each other, and it's we can say, you know, from a economic development point of view, from just a pure relationship point of view, from a human relationship point of view, our region was was historically very rich in culture, very rich in artifacts, very rich in stories, very rich in resources, oil and gas primarily. Agriculture is large in our region. It's a very wealthy region we live in, and there's lots of opportunities there. But we have an issue. It's called race relations, and race relations is always, it's always put to the test. You can't have any kind of growth or anything without having some basic understanding with each other. And I can't even stress how important understanding is, like race relations. And I always look at it this way: race relations goes both ways. I've personally removed myself from a lot of places. I just don't want to be part of convincing someone all the time that I'm good and you can trust me and I'm better. They came up with a word. It's called reconciliation. It was supposed to, I think it was supposed to, in a nice way, say that I'm trying my best, and I come from a really tough background, and my history's flawed and marred in a lot of issues, and alcohol and drugs and abuse, and I'm a product of that. But I have to move out of that place, and I'm trying to move forward, and I need you to help me. So the relationship in our region's always been really split 50-50. There's First Nations, and then there's non-First Nations, and we stay to ourselves, and so do the non-First Nations people. Once in a while, there's a crossover, and they come in different components. They either come in a project or a business, but it's always stayed split. So from your committee, I've seen the width of your committee. I understand it. We have a I don't want to throw names, but we have a mayor in North Battleford now. He's been put to the test in what relationships are, and he's done good. I am really proud of him, actually. Mayor Gillen, he's not a politician by trade. He hasn't been around, but he understands how important relationships are. You can't get anywhere without having really candid conversations. We were part of a group, a national focus group, about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's a place where we are the only tribal council in Canada that was tested, and they did it. We wanted it there because we wanted to talk about relationships and race, like get it out on the table, and say the word white person, say the word Native or Indian, get it out, like get it off, get the elephant out of the room. But you have to go through that. And we went through an exercise. It was 3 years, and we couldn't move a yard without talking about race and relationships. You can't, because what happens in the business side, you're looked at as a pity, and you get looked at that you're pitiful, and you're pitiful, and you need help. And then, but at the same time, the systems are trying to design systems for us that make us qualify or be part of something or pre-qualify for something. There's systems now. So you're and in one sense, you're looked at it as a meal ticket, and it's a really dynamic scenario when you build into these situations, because one group looks at you as a meal ticket. They need you to get the work, and the other one looks at you, the client looks at you as pitiful, and they have to do it. But the people inside the room haven't bought into the concepts. So like everyone in the room, you evolve, you get stronger, your towns, your communities get stronger. But I've gotten really strong, and personally, I've grew lots in the last few years. What the rule of thumb I have personally is, I'll never get down, I'll never beg, I'll never get on a knee and ask for something. I'll walk out of a room when I feel like there's something that there's no respect in that room, or I will just leave it. And because I'm trying to show that that if you want to partner or engage with First Nations people, like with a person like me, and I just have to narrow it down because I don't want to make it sound like everyone's the same. But if you really want to sit down with someone like me, then the first thing is you're going to have to respect the space we're sitting in. And the second thing is, I don't have a house in Victoria, and the everything I do is for a group of people that are just trying to get ahead. So people can understand infrastructure, water, sewer, garbage, roads. The bands I work for have to pay those pieces. And everyone in the room will understand that. Water, sewer, garbage, infrastructure. Those are hard costs for bands. Now, what we do is we risk First Nation money, and we place it into business. And it's public works money, it's infrastructure money that we're risking, housing money. We're taking these risks to go, and hopefully we get returns. That's a new space for us. We've only been at it for less than a decade. We've been around a long time, but a lot of non-First Nation people have done it for us. So now we're in a space where we're trying to learn that. The other concept is money. So money is a new concept to us. And I have to say it because part of our kind of reconciliation in that world is non-First Nation people, but we've had to learn to use the word white people, like, and I don't, not in a derogatory word, but I'm a First Nation, I'm an Indian. So, but you understand the concept of money, and I'm learning the concept of money, but my concept of money is different. It'll never be what someone else's concept of money is. Mine is made to help kids and elders and communities. That's what it's about. That's what we do. And with our bands, like, I'm really proud of our First Nations that I work for. My job is to support them, keep moving yardsticks. They're all, there's layers of First Nations that are growing. Right now, I'm really proud of our First Nations, where all 7 of our bands are all, they're called NFR, not NFR bands. They're referred to, they're financial management bands. Now they have all the tools they need to move ahead. We got a couple that are brand new treaty land entitlement bands. They're going to see the future now. They get to buy land. They get to expand on it and build businesses like Muskeg and Kakowishta and One Arrow and all the people. So we're at that stage now with the First Nations, and they're all independent. We try to get them to a point where they don't need us, where they have all the infrastructure they need. But as going back to our region, I can't stress the importance of having a good relationship, like understanding race, understanding. I've had to understand Mennonite because Stony Knoll First Nation sits right on the town of Laird. So, and I've had to understand, and I'm glad they taught me the culture of the Mennonite people. I understand that. I understand it really well because they've been teaching it to us for 10 years. So I understand Mennonite. So I understand how important land is to them. And at the same time, I understand how much effort they've made to learn our culture. In this case, it would be Plains Cree. They've learned that. They've spent 10 years being patient and learning that. So as you go, like, the concepts of culture is important. Then you can move forward. Like in terms of industry, there's money out there. You know, lots of work, you know, all this kind of stuff, a lot of resources. But you got to understand the golden rule for us is look at if it doesn't feel right, and if you're not respecting our goals, you can take the business and move on, try someone else. There's a lot of people that'll do it. That's just the way our approach has been now. It has to be like that, because the region's made us really hard. We've had situations where, you know, in rural areas where oil and gas developments are happening, we're at a big fight, not really a big fight, but we have a field full of artifacts in Prairie, Saskatchewan, and the RM plowed over them. They took a grader and they plowed over them, and it's taken us, you know, a bit of anger, but we've come to an understanding with the RM that those pieces of pottery you have there, that's really important to us, to me, but to all of our elders. Those little pieces are important to us. So it's taken us a lot of conversations without getting anger or bringing in real hard emotions where you start getting, you know, becoming a racist towards it. But we've had to learn how to move forward. And then, you know, the fear of having First Nations around, we still have a little bit of tough conversations with the whole, you know, we had a big issue there with some justice issues in the Battleford. It's a crime town, they call it, they refer to it as that. So, you know, you're constantly dealing with, you know, diffusing, making sure people understand, trying to be in your best position to make presentations, but, you know, speaking naturally, speaking normally, and try to be honest about your words. And I really appreciate it. I seen the Reeve of Corman Park, I think she's on. I can't say enough how much support she's given to Moosomin for the Moosomin Downs projects. We're trying to build a track in the RM of Corman Park, but there's been a lot of resistance from some of the owners that traditionally like the old ways. But we work through those projects. But at the same time, you got to look at everything that's coming from a negative, but from a positive, there is so many people, non-First Nation people, that are embracing Indigenous culture. And, you know, I see it every day. You know, I look forward to it all the time, every day. Always someone wanting to learn, always someone wanting to ask questions about the culture and getting that understanding. Companies we deal with, we've seen some that have tried really hard to understand the issues between employees, you know, some of the issues they have in the past, you know, the band, understanding the First Nation, what they're getting into when you deal with a First Nation, like getting really a lot of information to them. And then we've had people that just don't care. They just don't want nothing to do with it. They want to have it the old way. But you can't, you know why? Because we're just too strong. Like, I'm really proud of that. Like, we're just a strong set of people that are growing, and we want more and more and more for our communities and our bands. And it's nothing wrong with that. It's just like anyone that buys a piece of land, they want to build, and that's what we have. That's what we're creating. And you know, when you see that excitement and that passion, just embrace it and be part of it, learn from it. You know, and you know what? At the end of the day, we need help. You still need to help us. You know, we've still got a lot of human resource issues that we're trying to find. So, but that's a quick update from me. I didn't want to say too much, but I could have said lots, but I'm trying to keep it all in check all the time. But I want to thank you, Bobby, for the invitation, and to the group here. It's a great honor. I can only bring you some of my sentiments from the region that I work in. It's a highly charged racial region. It's been like that forever. We're working the kinks out. We're working the bugs out. We got 2 residential schools that we're finding kids on now. Looking for those. We have a fort in Battleford that had the last hangings. We're digging into that, resolving that. that will move us forward and get us some independence economically. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. I was just getting ready to pull the hook there and say, great job, Neil. Really appreciate it. Great words. And again, we're kind of running out of time. You kind of went over on the, but we got a couple minutes. I got two really good questions here. I think one for each of you, actually. I think Albert's already left. And just a quick question to you, Barrett. The question came in about the development at the Packham. Where is it now? What are you doing to encourage supply chain? Sorry, I'm just making sure I can read. I got to take my glasses off. What are you doing to encourage supply chain development in your community, in a small community or small area, local businesses that can supply goods and services to your larger enterprises? Was one of the questions in your area. I guess you stimulated the local economy a bit, but just another minute there would be great if you can wind it down to a minute or two. Thanks. I have to unmute them if I could. There we go.
You go. You got me unmuted now. We don't really engage necessarily in the supply chain. I mean, if it's a small business, we will facilitate kind of meshing wherever we can. And of course, if there is opportunities that can be passed on to the nation or even other ACDEV groups here, we do that. But when we are, because we're a separate economic development arm, we're not necessarily involved in like the day-to-day small business stuff. We have a board of directors that reports to a shareholder group, which is the nation. And when we do talk about the small business and supply chain stuff, we don't get really involved in that. We do try to foster that by educating people when they want to get into the areas of entrepreneurship or the sciences and that through scholarship programs. But as far as like the small business stuff, we just try to facilitate wherever we can. So, but labor is one of them. Like, I mean, we're trying to, if we can source somebody and place somebody, we definitely make that a priority here. So.
Thank you so much, Barrett. Appreciate it. One last quick question, Neil. 1 minute or less. No, just kidding. Do the best you can answer that one. One of the RMs have asked a question. They're from a smaller rural area. There may be fear of inadvertently saying something wrong, approaching something the wrong way. What advice could you give to them for making the first contact?
I think, like I know exactly where you are. We go into Robert and we do it all the time. We have to go into that southern area. There's no First Nation settlements within 200-300 kilometers of those places. So I know how it feels. We know how it feels to go into an area. So we go in there and first contact's always for us is icebreaker. So we use humor. There's no way around it. We don't start our presentation, our conversations. We try to get to know the person. There's a greeting, a natural greeting between Indigenous people. Always before they talk business, they greet, and then they have a bit of humor in the greeting. And the greeting is our icebreakers and the relaxers. And it's designed for you to relax with two races. And so our approach, when someone comes into our community, the first thing we do, or the first thing I do is and teasing is part of it, but we tease the person. We tease them, we relax, we talk about where they are, we tell them we're gonna take you to the reserve and we're gonna leave you there. Or something, or we're going to find you a mate in the reserve, or we do that to relax the situation. We bring up race, our heritage. We do that for a reason, because we're trying to make you relax with the conversation, because what's in between us is a race, First Nation and white, and it's the same like that. And that's how we engage. We talk about our races and get that over with. And then we get curious about your religion. So in this case, it would be Mennonite. And we talk about Mennonites. We ask questions because what we're trying to do is relax you. And then we get to business. So you can't get right into business. You have to go through a greeting. And then you got to understand, people like us, we try to relax the situation. We do it through humor. We'll do it through conversations. We'll do it through asking questions about you or your family or your religion or your culture, or we just might flat out tease you. So that's the way I do it. I don't know if it's right or wrong, Bobby, but
Yeah. You still do it anyway, Neil. I know
Yeah, we're gonna do it anyway.
No, we have a lot of fun doing that. You hit it right on the nose there, Neil. And Barrett, I really appreciate you guys answering. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, which is good. Sometimes some people say you can never fill an hour. It's tough to fill. But I really want to send a big thank you out to Albert DeRocher, Barrett Gray Eyes, and Neil Sasakamoose. These are all great colleagues and friends of mine. They got the right message. They do good things. And I mean, I could have picked 15 other people within this province, but at the end of the day, I know these three guys are champions. And that's what we talk about. They're champions. And there he goes. Neil's talking about making the money. So that's his handprint. So anyways, that's his, that's it in a nutshell. You know, these three gentlemen, I believe, are all open to questions. If you ever want to reach out to them, you Google them on their organization or just ask us. If Barrett and Neil, if you're okay sharing your email and contact information, if anybody has questions. I know it's tough to fill in 1 hour, but again, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you soon.